The formal gardens of the imperial palace stretched toward the horizon, a carefully orchestrated riot of flora from 100 conquered worlds. Queen Elijah walked its paths with Darius beside her, not trailing behind as protocol dictated, but alongside as an equal. 4 months had passed since the failed coup, and their relationship had evolved in ways neither had anticipated. "The Cygnus delegation arrives tomorrow," Elijah said, breaking their comfortable silence. "They've specifically requested your presence at negotiations." "That's the third delegation this month," Darius noted. "Word has spread about the human advisor to the fearsome queen of the Vorsai. Does it bother you, being something of a spectacle?" Darius smiled. "I was a spectacle from my first day here. At least now I have comfortable quarters and can speak without fear of the pain chambers." Elijah winced. Those days seem distant now. They stopped before a reflecting pool where earth lotuses, transplanted from Darius's colony, now flourished among Vorsai aquatic plants. The integration of the species had created an unexpectedly beautiful hybrid with bioluminescent properties. "Like those flowers," Darius said, following her gaze. "Some combinations create something greater than either original." Elijah turned to him, her amber eyes searching his face. "The High Council remains divided on my reforms. Many see any concession to non-Vorsai as weakness." "And what do you see?" he asked softly. Before she could answer, Captain Zenith approached urgently. "My queen, we've received an emergency transmission from the Radiant Outpost. The Krell Dominion has launched a surprise attack. They demand immediate surrender of the sector." The crisis consumed the next 18 hours. In the war room, Elijah and her commanders debated strategy while reports of Krell advances continued to arrive. "We must commit the main fleet," General Thoria insisted. "Crush them with overwhelming force." "The Krell anticipated that," Darius countered, studying the tactical display. "Look at their formation. They're drawing us into committing to a frontal assault." "And what would a human know of space combat?" Thoria scoffed. Elijah raised a hand for silence. "Continue, Ambassador." "The Krell psychology emphasizes direct confrontation. It's culturally ingrained," Darius explained. "But humans have historically excelled at asymmetric warfare, finding unexpected approaches when outmatched." He manipulated the display. "There's a stellar phenomenon in this sector, a pulsar with predictable radiation bursts, if your ships took this approach route, timed with the pulsar's cycle." A day later, reports arrived of the Krell fleet's comprehensive defeat. Using Darius's strategy, Vorsai ships had approached through what the Krell considered impassable space, shielded by the timing of the pulsar's radiation cycle. That evening, Elijah summoned Darius to her private observatory. The transparent dome offered an unobstructed view of the galaxy's spiral arm, stars scattered like diamonds on velvet. "You saved thousands of Vorsai lives today," she said without preamble. Darius nodded, and hopefully showed the value of different perspectives. "The High Council has requested an audience. They wish to thank you personally, unprecedented for a non-Vorsai." She moved closer, the starlight playing across her silver-green skin. "I've been wondering something. When you warned me about the conspiracy, you said you weren't convinced my successor would be an improvement. Was that true, or merely calculated to win my trust?" "It was true," Darius admitted. "I had come to see potential in you that perhaps even you didn't recognize." "And now," her voice had dropped to a whisper. "Now I see much more," he answered, reaching cautiously to touch her cheek. Elijah closed her eyes briefly at the contact. "This is forbidden," she murmured, even as she leaned into his touch. "The queen and a former slave, an alien." "Former slave, current ambassador," Darius corrected gently. "And perhaps we're not so different, two people trying to forge a better path than the one laid out for them." Her amber eyes opened, searching his. "The court would never accept." "They don't have to," he interrupted. "Not yet, but someday they might see what I see, that your greatness lies not in conquest but in the courage to evolve." Under the watching stars, Queen Elijah of the Vorsai Empire kissed a human for the first time, crossing a boundary that would forever change both their worlds. The Grand Hall of Celestial Harmony, oldest chamber in the Vorsai Imperial Palace, had witnessed 12 centuries of coronations, declarations of war, and peace treaties. Today, it would host something unprecedented, the formal recognition of a human as royal consort to the Empress. Darius stood before a window, adjusting the intricate Vorsai ceremonial attire that had been modified to accommodate human physiology. A year had passed since he'd first stood in this palace as a captive, yet the transformation seemed both impossibly rapid and long overdue. "Nervous?" asked Zenith, now promoted to commander of the Imperial Guard and one of Darius's few Vorsai friends. "Terrified," Darius admitted. "Not of the ceremony, but what comes after. The reforms we're proposing, emancipation of all human captives, representation in the Governance Council, they'll face tremendous resistance." "Change always does," Zenith replied philosophically. "But you've already accomplished the impossible, making our queen smile." On the other side of the palace, Elijah faced her own confrontation. The matriarchs of the 5 ancient houses, the true power behind the throne, had demanded audience before the ceremony. "This union contradicts 1,000 years of genetic purity laws," declared matriarch Zelana, eldest and most conservative. "You risk destabilizing the entire imperial system." Elijah stood tall, her ceremonial armor gleaming, her red curls adorned with the crown of stars. "The imperial system is already changing. The Krell defeat demonstrated the value of human strategic thinking. The hybridized agriculture program has increased yields 40% on frontier worlds, and the new medical protocols adapted from human techniques have reduced infant mortality by half. Progress can occur without diluting royal bloodlines," Matriarch Venza countered. "Take the human as unofficial consort if you must, but not as recognized royalty." "That time has passed," Elijah said firmly. "The future of the Vorsai lies not in isolation, but in selective integration of strengths from other species. Darius will be my consort publicly and legally. The proclamation is already prepared." The youngest matriarch, Selene, who had until now remained silent, spoke. "Perhaps the queen is wiser than tradition. My house has studied the economic projections. Voluntary alliance with human colonies would provide resources without the cost of conquest and occupation." A fracture in the previously united front. Elijah seized the opportunity. "I don't ask you to embrace this change immediately. I ask only that you observe its effects before judgment." Later, as ceremonial gongs announced the beginning of the processional, Darius and Elijah met briefly in a side chamber. "The matriarchs?" he asked. "Divided," she replied. "It's a start." He took her hands, still marveling at the contrast between his brown skin and her silver green. "Are you certain about this? There's still time to choose a less radical path." Elijah's amber eyes held his. "I was certain the moment you risked everything to warn me of the conspiracy, choosing integrity over opportunity," she smiled. "Besides, you promised to show me Earth someday. I can hardly visit as a conqueror now." "From slave to ambassador to consort to tour guide," Darius laughed. "Quite a career trajectory." The ceremony proceeded with traditional Vorsai solemnity, though many in attendance still showed shock at seeing a human elevated to such status. When Elijah placed the consort's circlet on Darius's head, a ripple of whispers swept through the hall. After the formal pronouncements, Elijah stood to address her empire, her voice carried by transmitters to every Vorsai world and outpost. "Today marks not just a union between 2 individuals, but the beginning of a new approach to our place in the galaxy," she declared. "For too long, the Vorsai Empire has equated strength with domination, but true strength lies in adaptation, in recognizing value beyond our traditions." She gestured to Darius. "This human once told me that a truly great civilization isn't afraid of criticism or change. Today, we demonstrate that greatness." As the assembly departed for the celebration feast, an elderly scholar approached the royal couple. "History will remember this day," he said, bowing deeply. "Though whether as the beginning of a golden age or the start of our downfall remains to be written." "All great changes carry risk," Darius acknowledged. "But the greatest risk," Elijah finished, "would be refusing to evolve when the stars themselves demand it." Later that night, away from ceremony and politics, they stood on the private balcony of the royal suite. The 3 moons of the Vorsai homeworld cast overlapping shadows across the capital city. "What are you thinking?" Elijah asked, nodding Darius's contemplative expression. "About patterns," he replied. "How the universe seems to delight in bringing together opposites, silver-green and brown, queen and captive, 2 species from distant stars." "Perhaps the universe is wiser than we give it credit for," she murmured, leaning against him. Darius smiled. Perhaps, or perhaps we simply found the courage to rewrite a story that seemed already determined. As the smallest moon set behind distant mountains, they remained together, no longer alien to each other, but architects of a future neither could have imagined alone. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.